It is Friday, the 21st of February, 2025, and I started a video like a moment ago. I realized my audio was off, so I said I might as well just start the whole video over. So here we are. So I was saying that I was looking into some old course materials that I had put together or that I've taught and instructed, whether it be with the military or after the military when I was working with multiple different companies like Reticle, 360 Secure, incredible companies with people that were former Special Forces commanding officers and former employees of various capacities, not just within the Special Forces, but also law enforcement and fire and other security professionals that have worked in the security industry in other capacities, like with venues and bodyguards and LCBO employees, et cetera, et cetera. And excuse me. And so I've shared what I had put together, just like a broad brush of the hostile environment awareness training and the SRDTs, the standing rapid deployment team courses. But I just thought I might as well, because I was talking about combat estimates and mission analysis and stuff like that, I think in yesterday's video, and how that's something that it was introduced to me early on in my career as I was going through my what we call phase training in the infantry, and so like my assessments of events, it was largely built upon the foundations that I was taught, and then it was reinforced throughout my military career and expanded on, right? And so I have over 23 years now at assessing events where I'm looking at things like mission analysis, I'm doing the combat estimates. These are things that take a very long time. And I think that that's possibly something that has given me an edge in my civilian work, working with higher level government agencies that didn't have that experience. Because even in the military, Canada does have a small military overall that includes Army, Air Force, and Navy, and Reserve and Reg Force. But the other, like even within the Army, for example, a lot of people will get this training at lower levels. They will learn about things like SMESC, which is like an orders format that Canada uses. It's fairly universal. Situation, mission, execution, signal supports, and then command and SIGs. Anyways, that's the breakdown of what that is. And but it doesn't go further, like much further into that, depending on what trade you have, what career you're in. And that's even within the Army, right? So oftentimes people that are within the infantry, especially at the senior NCO and officer level, get a lot more training in strategic operations and tactical operations at the macro and micro level. We are the ones that are the coordinators of the other assets as well, the attachments, detachments, etc. Whether it be operating with local governance or governing bodies, if we're operating out of country, or even in country, we obviously we work in unison, synergistically with the governing bodies within Canada as well. But like the Air Force attachments, Navy attachments, or like we use Air Force for things like medevac, medical evacuations, and transport of troops, air mobile attachment. Like there's so many different ways you can use for surveillance, for like fire suppression, overwatch. There's multiple different ways that we can operate within the Air Force and Navy, but we are generally the ones that are adding them into our orders and instructions, and giving them assigned tasks and things like that, to varying degrees, and then they go off and they do their own estimates and they write their own orders and stuff like that to give to their own people. But anyway, so where was I going with that? Oh yeah, I was going to share. So this is just a couple of PowerPoints, and so this is mission analysis. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just to give you that, there's like so many different points to consider when you're doing this. And this is something that you learn in your phase 4. This is battle prep. It's gotten up to 16 steps of battle procedure that you go through. So this is open source information. I'm not going to go further into this stuff, even though you can get this online anywhere. But this is stuff that I was teaching to officers before they would get posted to a battalion. And so anyways, so receive warning order, conduct a quick map study in time, appreciation, receipt of orders, conduct mission analysis. And this is where this comes in. Issue initial warning order. This is to your people under your chain of command. make a detailed time, and it goes to your warrant generally, and the section commanders, and then they're the ones that disseminate the warning orders to their men. Anyways, make a detailed time estimate. Very important. Conduct and that's even like time of like rehearsals and recce's and departure and H hour and like at objective and blah 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 blah. Anyways, conduct a map study and prepare an outline plan. Generally speaking, that can also just be like a quick map recce, like on like the map that you have, and not an actual recce on the ground. You won't have time likely at that point. And anyways, prepare a recce plan, conduct the reconnaissance. It's usually that's the like the platoon commander, if it's at that level, that will go with the maybe the weapons deck commander, the section commanders, the warrant. He might stay back. Again, it really just depends. And then again, you're going and doing a recce, it would be like, and you'd obviously bring your signaler, and so it's like a small group of people that you choose to conduct these recce's. And then get back. Do a remainder of the estimate when you get back if you have a lot more information. Issue a supplementary warning order. Prepare and issue orders. And there's a lot of concurrent activity going on. Like when you're the one that's, as the officer, if you're the one that's actually like writing the orders and going through the battle prep, you're going to be oftentimes like on your own, getting information as needed from like the section commanders and the warrant and things like that. But like you're the ones that are writing up the orders, issuing the orders and all that stuff. And so when you're doing that in the background, there's a lot of battle prep that's going on, like ammunition, like rations, all that stuff, like prepping gear and weaponry for whatever mission we're going to be doing. Anyway. Coordinate activities and requirements of subordinates, supervise deployment, execute the mission, and conduct an after action review. Also very important to conduct after action reviews while everything is still fresh, getting information from the people that were there with you, even if it was from the, like from zero, to get their interpretation of what happened on the ground based on their feedback over the radio and things like that. And then recap and like what went right, what went wrong, what could have went better, etc. Mission analysis, evaluation of factors, considerations of courses of actions, enemies most likely, most dangerous, most lethal, I would look at as well, but like focusing on at least 2 COAs to look at to make your decision, and the commander's decision. So I'm going to close that down. And there was another one up. I'll show the critical incident stress management one. Again, just switching gears, but even like the combat estimate itself, there's another whole ass PowerPoint presentation with a bunch more references. And then that's broken down further. And so this is when I was with 360 Secure. This is the course package for this company. Unfortunately, through COVID, they were impacted. And I did update this, so I'm just giving you an older draft version, but it's called Critical Incident Stress Management. And there's just a whole bunch of information in here. Welcome to the lesson index. The lesson will cover topics below. Critical incident stress management, pre-incident education, the cost of critical incident stress, and references and resources and summary. When you have completed this course, you will be able to define critical incident and explain the importance of critical incident stress management, define critical incident stress, and be able to recognize the signs and symptoms of stress reaction, recognize the phases and effects of critical incident stress, recognize the effects of critical incident stress while at the scene of a critical incident and apply techniques to minimize the impact, recognize the effects of critical incident stress following a critical incident and apply techniques to minimize the impact, and explain how family and an organization can help recognize the effects of critical incident stress and apply techniques to minimize the impact. So there's just a bunch of information in here. And again, I have updated this as well. And I give a practical portion during my courses as well. I believe it's very important because some people are visual learners, some people are practical learners, some people are, it's just across the board. And so it just reinforces the content, and with especially with using visual aids and imagery and things like that as well. It assists. And oh my God, I can get into like Flowcark and Copt and and christening the ground and stuff like that, which you do even before orders, which is also long and complex and covers a lot of ground where you're assessing like the enemy locations, and you're looking at civilians, you're looking at NGO locations, other friendly assets that are operating within the area, either with you or at least within the area of responsibility that you're operating in. AOR. Anyway, I'll get back to teaching those courses again. It's just like, it's just going to take some work to get for people to get past what has gone on since COVID. And because these are the people within the networks, unfortunately, especially within Ottawa, that are like towing the party line, or at least like not wanting to ruffle any feathers when they're teaching courses. And so right now I'm seen as very controversial, especially because, like, again, since COVID, I've been calling things out regarding the lab leak, regarding the VAERS, regarding so much medical, scientific, government data that I've shared in videos. Refer to those. And so, like, especially for a few years, it was really just like that. People like myself were painted as right wing, white extreme, like white supremacists, radicals, extremists, all of these things. Tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists, and so within my network, I mean, if you're tagged as that, it's a career ender. Like look what happened, right? It was an absolute career ender, and the fact that I didn't get vaccinated as well, like I wasn't even able to work within these industries anyways because of what was being mandated, and they were just like, they just refused to accept that risk, right? And so even with travel, even when we were on chartered, even when we were on like private aircraft, and not commercial, chartered, not commercial. And she drinks a little bit more coffee. And so that was a career ender. And even with giving assistance to people that like are interpreters and people that supported us in Afghanistan, I offered to go there because I was a convoy operations commander when I was over there, and I've been through a lot of the the area. And so why would you not want to have that? And I was a battle group embarkation officer as well. So I was also managing people coming from all over Canada and the world going into Afghanistan, and then from CAF, Kandahar Airfield, into the area of operations, literally everyone, and also the relief in place, right? So getting them there, and then I kind of like at the strategic level, and then at the tactical level when they were on the ground, to get them securely and safely, coordinating all that via various avenues, whether it be air or land or sea, but obviously not within Afghanistan because there's no oceans. But anyways, so personnel, equipment, resources, all that stuff, I was managing that while I was doing my primary fucking job. It was ridiculous, but again, I was good at that stuff, and so they wanted it to be someone that would be reliable, I guess. And where was it going with that stuff? Yeah, so it was like very, very, very. So why would you not want me there in place? And then also on the relief in place on the way back as well. So to get into Afghanistan and then do the handover again with the elements that were there before we got there, and have it where it was staged, right? And anyways, and then on the way back, the same thing. And then coordinating the decompression areas and the schedules for that as well. And then when people would get back to all their units or battalions all over Canada and the fucking world, it was step by step too. I had to go like a one pager, like very clearly, like the process to go through, and then the timings again for when they got back to their home units, and within the first few days, what they had to do to clear back in to work. And then they would take a break. So yeah, and because I wasn't vaccinated, nope, can't do that. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Anyways, it is what it is. And I was willing to test and stuff like that, even though I knew there was false positives, even though I knew they couldn't tell the difference between other upper respiratory viruses at that time either, and how the numbers were overinflated, all of that stuff, and the concerns, and the fact that I was healthy because of putting in the effort on my own, which kind of sucks sometimes, and I don't have the motivation to do sometimes, but like I was still working out even though I couldn't go to my own gym that I was paying for, so I ended up canceling my fucking membership. And because this is stress management, this is physical management, and it was important, but because I didn't have a fucking barcode, I was not allowed entrance, restaurants and things like that. I wasn't able to like leave the border to see my family for over 2 years. It was ridiculous. And yeah, and then the in-person training and stuff like that. A lot of the work I was doing was literally in person. You can't do executive protection unless you're in person. Like it's shitty if you're doing it virtually. Like let me know how that works. Use of force, you can't. They were trying to do it virtual. Even Chris Mandigma was, who was incredible, and he put a lot of good videos together, and it still works. But I would say that his in-person training is superior. Like firearms instruction, like you can't do that virtual. You can't do advanced driving instruction virtual. Maybe a bit of the theory, but anyway, even that. Yeah, so it was kind of interesting, and then I was controversial regarding the Ukraine-Russia proxy war with that had NATO assistance, more specifically, more largely the U.S. and then the CIA assets that were there for like over a decade and assisted with the staged and planned coup over a decade ago, and yeah, and where the money was been going, the financials and stuff like that. No one wanted to hear that because people usually on the right wing are more pro-war because they think it's helping people, and it's not. I haven't even got to my stories yet. I want to start doing that. So anyway, I think this could be the year though. I have no ego into this. And so, yeah, I would like to start doing this stuff again in person.
Trump is?
Yeah. I'm going to refresh this.
What? Who is the worst person on this list? Trump is?
Trump.
Yeah. Why is he worse than Joseph Stalin?
Because Trump, as the leader of the free world, has done so much damage internally and externally. Whereas most of these leaders did some damage across their borders, but
A little damage, right?
yeah. But for the most part, Trump has damaged relationships. He's disrupted our democracy for everything that Americans believe in, whether they realize it yet or not. He's disrupted it.
All right. So do you know the death toll of Mao down there in the middle?
Crazy.
Under the Communist Chinese Party?
No, I don't.
65 million.
Really?
Do you know Joseph Stalin's death toll in Soviet Russia with the gulags and all that good stuff?
Nope, I don't.
Upwards of 40 million. Che Guevara, do you know what he liked to do to gay people?
No.
He liked to put them in labor camps and torture them.
Really?
Uh-huh. You know anything about Osama bin Laden?
Just a little.
No. He's worse than... He's better than Trump?
Well, I think it's a function of, again, disrupting a core value.
Bin Laden was a radicalized CIA puppet.
Our core values.
Do you think running 2 planes into American buildings in New York City and killing thousands of American citizens in the name of Islam is disrupting anything?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah.
It was deplorable.
But it's worse than what Trump has done.
It's not worse. I think what Trump has done over 4 years is a lot worse. We just don't know it yet.
You don't know why? You don't know why he's worse than Osama bin Laden?
We collectively don't understand all that he's disrupted.
Do you?
Oh, sure.
Can you tell me one thing he's disrupted that's worse than Osama bin Laden? We'll leave out the communists that have upwards, millions, tens of millions of people under their death toll. Let's just say Trump and Osama bin Laden. How is Trump worse than Osama bin Laden?
He's defrauded America.
I'm sorry?
He's defrauded America.
Defrauded. So he took away the fraud?
No, he's defrauded our system. So I gotta take this. I gotta zoom.
Do you know who your opinion would be about who is the worst person on this list?
Wild. Wild. I love her. This is Pam Bond.
Scaring bad guys is something Cash has talked about a lot, and you have when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and the people who are like predators in this country. Yeah. They've been given a pass, and a lot of Americans think these guys have got a pass for a long time, and maybe even are still being protected right now. Where are we at with the Jeffrey Epstein list, the documents? And Cash has made a lot of public statements about this. Where are we at?
I was briefed on that yesterday. I can't talk about that publicly, but President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed.
Wow. Okay. So
a lot of documents.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises.
Yeah, right.
I think promises made, promises kept, and that's why we're all there to carry out his directive about making America safe and prosperous.
Scaring bad guys is something Cash is talking.
Jury's still out on that. But I mean, with Cash, I think there's hope. I like him. I don't know.
There's the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down. There's the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's.
They always play like the greatest music for him too. And you can't see me. Here I am. Okay. I want to get into the Ukraine stuff. Because I was sharing information with people that were even going over to assist with medical evacuations and consultations and all that stuff. And I was telling them about the Ghost of Kiev. I was telling them about Snake Island. I was telling them about the rape allegations and all the misinformation. And they were listening, but at some point they just turned it off, right? And it was still like mission first. And yeah, and even with like the Polish farmers and with Nord Stream and Nord Stream 2, like even before it fucking happened, like I was even on the record saying this afterwards, but no, or even beforehand, but after talking to them before it happened, that it was going to be like NATO planned or organized, or at least incentivizing people to do it, and that it was going to cause a lot of harm.
NATO globalist deep state. That Elon Musk just called out the NATO globalist deep state. That
I think that he's also involved in the NATO globalist deep state stuff.
Tortured and killed an American citizen and journalist, Gonzalo Lira.
Tesla.
Lira begged for the State Department to get him out of the country and to help him because the Ukrainians said, we're going to kill you. And they put him in prison and beat him to death and then bragged about it.
Disgusting.
And then said, Alex Jones, Jack Posobiec, and others, we want to kill you if we can. Then they sent a U.S. Ukrainian-trained CIA operative to Mar-a-Lago to try to kill President Trump. These people are sick,
I don't know about
and they're evil, and they're being exposed right now. Yesterday, President Trump called a spade, a duck a duck. He simply said Zelensky has canceled elections for over a year, has banned all his political opposition, taken over the media, banned the Orthodox Church, and has a 4% approval rating. And so we need an election in Ukraine to see if they want to keep dying attacking Russia.
It's been
as
more
NATO
than a year,
Soros puppets. But then Elon Musk reminded me, that's why I follow his feed. It's the greatest feed in the world. InfoWars is a close second. A lot of the great ones as well. But the point is that Gonzalo Lira, who I interviewed several times, and my crew did as well, was an American journalist just simply covering what was really happening. They grabbed him and they tortured him to death and they bragged about it. Elon Musk responded to a post about Gonzalo Lira. Ukraine imprisoned and killed Gonzalo Lira, an American journalist who was critical of Zelensky. This was his last tweet. Right now, I'm about to try to get out of Ukraine and seek political asylum in Hungary. Either I'll cross the border and make it to safety, or I'll be disappeared by the Kiev regime. This is what happened to me over the past 3 months. And then he was tortured to death in their custody. They admitted it. And what did Elon Musk say? Zelensky killed an American journalist.
Because what is happening right now is what everybody realized was going to happen 6 months ago, or 5.5 months ago, when this special military operation started, which is that Russia is winning. It's definitively winning. It is the victory on the part of the Russians is overwhelming, And the people who are bleeding that the Russians are losing, that it's a static war and whatnot, they simply don't want to see reality. What's happened in the West is that people think that if you say something often enough, it will somehow change reality.
And that's what they like to do to all of us. The globalist tyranny has destroyed so many nations, and it's destroying America, and it's got us on the verge of nuclear war. And thank God the world's waking up. And thank God President Trump's calling it like it is. Zelensky is an unelected, tyrannical dictator. He's a world-class rat and a scumbag.
Understand what's going on.
But on social media, there were a few people reporting in what seemed like a pretty honest way from within Ukraine. And one of them was an American citizen called Gonzalo Lira. He lived in Ukraine for quite some time, and he posted, particularly on Twitter, his accounts of what life was like there and his view of how the war was going. And so for people who are interested in what was happening, he was worth watching. Here's one of his reports.
The Russian economy is sailing on, sailing on. European economy, people are starting to die of hypothermia in the UK because they don't have access to the cheap energy of Russia from before. See? And so everything that the West has thrown at the Russians has boomeranged right back at them. And so now they're panicking and they're trying to figure out a way out of this situation. And they figure that if they throw more tanks, it'll help. It won't help. The Ukrainians, rather, they had like something like 2,000 tanks before the start of this conflict. You think a couple of hundred now is going to help? I mean, why are they asking them? Because those 2,000 tanks are gone. That's basic, you know? And so what, a couple of hundred, maybe 300 tanks, is that going to change the outcome of the conflict? Oh, it won't. The Russians are just going to destroy them. In the West, all of the propaganda has said that Zelensky is a hero, a Winston Churchill figure, and the Kiev regime are just angels and stuff like that. No, they're bloodthirsty murderers, the Kiev regime. I'm telling you right now.
So he made a couple of points. One, Russia is not losing the war with Ukraine. Russia is winning. Two, the Russian economy, despite the sanctions from the United States and Western Europe, and despite the war, has not been destroyed. The Russian economy is actually fine, and in some ways it's improving. It's becoming more independent, more commodities-based, and that's an advantage for a country with a lot of commodities like Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. economy and U.S. military power has suffered as a result of the war. Now, Lira, to the extent that people responded to him in this country, in our media, was denounced as a Russian puppet and a liar and a propagandist. But in fact, now we can admit he was right. What you just heard was true, factually true. Russia is not losing the war in Ukraine. Russia is winning. Russia's economy is fine. Ours is not. So what happened to Gonzalo Lira? Well, for posting that video and others like it, he was arrested by the government of Ukraine, the one that we pay for, the supposed democracy.
And that we pay for in Canada too.
Moral reasons against the autocracy of Russia. He was arrested. And then he was let out. And then he tried to leave the country. He tried to leave Ukraine. Here's a video, his last video. This is Gonzalo Lira.
I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die.
He was right.
And so I decided that the smart thing was take my chances in terms of getting across the border. Right now, I'm maybe 5 kilometers away from the border with Hungary. Over the last 2 days, I rode my bike just about 1,300 kilometers from Kharkov all the way here to the border.
1,300 kilometers.
And my intention is to cross the border, get to Hungary, and in Hungary, I'm going to ask for political asylum. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next couple of hours, or I will be arrested again, and God knows what will happen to me.
He never made it. 5 miles from the Hungarian border, 5 kilometers rather, from the Hungarian border, he was arrested. Gonzalo Lira remains in prison tonight, a political prisoner in a country that we were told was free, a country whose government we are still paying for. The Biden State Department is uninterested.
He died the 12th of January of last year, 12th of January of 2024.
interested in the fate of this American citizen. In fact, of course, they support his imprisonment, and no one in the national media seems interested in his fate whatsoever. So we thought it would be worth speaking to his father, Gonzalo Lira Sr., who joins us now from Chile. Mr. Lira, thanks so much for joining us. Have you heard from your son? Do you know where he is? And do you know how he's doing?
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you
for the opportunity of saying what is going on with my son Gonzalo. Today will mark the 7th full month that he's been arrested in Ukraine. He has not gone into trial. He's awaiting trial. He was appointed a court attorney. That doesn't
This would have aired in 2023 sometime.
Speak English. He's an Ukrainian attorney.
Like the end of 2023.
Insofar as the U.S. Embassy, they haven't done a thing. Neither I nor his sister living in the USA, and I'm reading because I don't want to lose anything, neither I nor his sister living in the USA have been able to communicate with Gonzalo. He's incommunicado. The U.S. Embassy has not answered our inquiries. The embassy in Kyiv never offered a defense attorney, never visited him, except for the first time, his court appointment last November 8th. The embassy has just burned out Gonzalo. An American citizen by birth is in jail because he was exercising his right of freedom of speech.
Oh, this guy. Oh!
Cosgrove with
Matthew
the
Miller.
So back in May, I asked you about Gonzalo Lira. He was the U.S. citizen arrested in Ukraine for posting dissident content online, and you told me the State Department was aware of his.
I'm just gonna see if I can put subtitles on. Because this guy's asking questions. No, I can't add this. Damn it. No, I'm not able to. But he's asking questions about torture, broken rib, etc. Political prisoner. No one in the from the government is paying any attention to this.
Arrest in May.
Arrested in
and
May.
We learned last night through a series of tweets by him that he had been tortured in the Ukrainian prison, and he was now on a motorcycle with a broken rib trying to flee to the Hungarian border. And so I'm wondering, if this is true.
So you had already saw the video. He was even saying that 1,300 kilometers on a bike, broken rib, tortured, political prisoner, all of this stuff.
Given the State Department knew of his arrest and his detention, how has this been allowed to occur? We have a U.S. citizen being detained and perhaps tortured in the prison of one of our strongest allies.
Yeah. Detained, tortured, possibly, in a prison of one of our strongest allies who they are funding billions of dollars, not all going to them. It's money laundering schemes and going to corrupted officials, all this stuff. And
well, you lost me with the perhaps and the if.
He said, well, you lost me with the perhaps. The audio is low, so I'm just trying to paraphrase.
This is true. I think I'd want to verify those reports.
I'm just going to...
this been allowed to occur. We have a U.S. citizen being detained and perhaps tortured in the prison of one of our strongest allies.
Well, you lost me with the perhaps and the if this is true. I think I'd want to verify those reports before I commented on it, Alex.
I think I'd want to verify those reports before I made a comment on them. It is true. So comment on that. You should be tracking that. But again, he just brushes it off. I hope this guy gets fired.
Is the State Department investigating?
I just want to verify anything before I comment. Go ahead, Alex.
Happening in Gonzalo Lira? Well, for posting that video and others like it, he was arrested by the government of Ukraine, the one that we pay for. And then he was let out, and then he tried to leave the country.
I will definitely be sent to a prison labor camp where I will most certainly die. And my intention is to cross the border, get to Hungary, and in Hungary, I'm going to ask for political asylum. So either I will cross the border into Hungary in the next couple of hours, or I will be arrested again, and God knows what will happen to me.
He never made it. 5 miles from the Hungarian border, 5 kilometers rather from the Hungarian border, he was arrested. The Biden State Department is uninterested in the fate of this American citizen. In fact, of course, they support his imprisonment, and no one in the national media seems interested in his fate whatsoever.
You see, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, well, the cokehead of Kiev, because he is a cokehead, the cokehead of Kiev is actually a manufactured political figure. He was manufactured by a Ukrainian Israeli Cypriot oligarch called Igor Kolomoisky. Now, Igor Kolomoisky was the man who owns 1+1 Media here in Ukraine. And 1+1 Media is the company that financed and produced the TV show Servant of the People. And Servant of the People hired Zelensky, a well-known actor in Ukraine, an actor with zero political experience or even any political interest. Well, they hired him to play the role of the president in this show, Servant of the People. Now, Servant of the People had huge ratings, but a lot of people say that it was really weird, the amount of propaganda and PR that was done for the show. It was disproportionate to any other show of any channel. The amount of PR, positive press, and all the rest of it, it was really pushed on the people. Some people say it was completely astroturfed. Some people who know how to speak Ukrainian and who have watched the show have told me that it's a mildly enjoyable show, but no big deal. But anyway, the show was hugely popular. And it ran from 2015 to 2018. And almost seamlessly, Kolomoisky, the oligarch, created a party called Servant of the People, same name as the TV show. And their candidate was Zelensky, a man with no previous political experience and indeed no previous political interest. And Kolomoisky financed Zelensky to the point that Zelensky today is a billionaire. How many actors do you know are billionaires? I mean, I don't think that Tom Cruise is a billionaire, and he's the most successful actor in the world.
Obama?
If he's just an actor.
Well, he's not a billionaire. They're not billionaires.
Zelensky's more than just an actor.
They're actors.
He's the finger puppet of Kolomoisky.
Musk is an actor.
This oligarch. And do you know who Kolomoisky also financed to the tune of $50,000 a month, plus additional benefits of different sorts? Hunter Biden.
Yep.
Yes. In 2014, Burisma, the Ukrainian oil company,
since
gas
2014,
company, excuse me,
what happened then?
hired
Staged
Hunter
and planned
Biden
coup.
to be on its board of directors to the tune of $50,000 a month. Who do you think controls Burisma? Kolomoisky, the same guy who manufactured Zelensky as president of Ukraine. Yeah, I bet you didn't know that.
Excuse me.
Zelensky and Hunter Biden are spiritual cousins. They are bankrolled by the same guy. It's funny because both of them have drug addictions, pretty serious ones. Both of them get their money from Kolomoisky, and both of them are intimately involved in Ukraine. But here's the difference, of course. Zelensky doesn't have a dad who's president of the United States, now does he? Why do you think the White House, the United States, is freaking out so badly over Ukraine? In Ukraine, there are all kinds of secrets.
Yep.
In Ukraine,
Labs too.
see, the more unsavory people in the Washington establishment have used Ukraine as their private piggy bank to the detriment of the Ukrainian people. They have financially raped Ukraine, stripping it of monies and assets needed by the people of Ukraine. And this is part of the reason that Ukraine is one of the poorest countries in Europe, if not the poorest country in Europe, because of the corruption, because of how Westerners have exploited it, Western politicians have exploited it. Hunter Biden, $50,000 a month. And you say to yourself, well, $50,000 isn't that much. Yeah, but $50,000 a year is the median household income in the United States. In Ukraine, a much poorer country, $50,000 a year would easily solve the problems of a good 4 or 5 families in Ukraine. Yep. The financial problems of those 4 or 5 families in Ukraine. For a year, And Hunter Biden was getting that money per month just for himself. Although, of course, in the Hunter Biden emails, there's talk that seems to be true that the old man would get a 10% kickback of whatever Hunter Biden was getting. And that was in the laptop. Oh, yeah. Look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take my word for any of what I'm telling you. Look it up yourself and you'll find it. It's very easy to find. Kolomoisky, the Ukrainian Israeli Cypriot oligarch, was financing Zelensky, was financing Joe Biden. God alone knows who else he was financing. And he was just one. Kolomoisky, the Ukrainian Israeli Cypriot oligarch, was financing Zelensky, was financing Joe Biden. God alone knows who else he was financing. And he was just one. There's a whole rotten bunch of these people here in Ukraine.
Kolomoisky.
And they were all busy paying off the West so that they could carry on their little evil deeds and whatnot. If you want to know why the West is freaking out over Ukraine, you have to understand that they are all terrified that the truth will come out in Ukraine.
Elon Musk.
So, very interesting. Not a reputable source. But just to give you an idea of what, like, first of all, his how to spell his name. Jewish mogul and billionaire Ihor Kolomoisky arrested in Ukraine amid fraud accusations. Kolomoisky, a well-known Jewish tycoon and philanthropist. As soon as you give me this friggin' word right here, I'm like, most of the philanthropists I know at the top, the billionaire types, part of like the foundations, like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Soros Foundation, whatever that is called, the Clinton Foundation, the you name it. We allegedly legalized more than 14 million by withdrawing them abroad and using the infrastructure of banks under his control, Ukraine's security agency said in a statement. So what else did they say about him? In 2008, he was elected the president of the United Jewish Community of Ukraine in Kiev. Became a major funder in Ukraine for the Chabad movement, which has Ukrainian roots. So they're calling him an oligarch, like right there. I wonder if he did. I wonder if he stripped their passports. I'll look into that. I find that highly unlikely. Oh, Canada. Oh, before I even get into that, oh my God, Canadian phone repairer. Check this out. Canadian phone repairer. Every 5G phone that I fix doesn't have a 5G chip in it.
Everybody, Cohen here with Cohen's Phone Repairs. Today I have an update on 5G. Now everybody says don't get a 5G phone because they're dangerous because of the 5G. Now I have two 5G phones in front of me. Right there is where the 5G chip is supposed to be. And right there is where the 5G chip is supposed to be. I'm sorry to break this to everybody, but every phone, and again, I fix phones every day, so you can take this from a reliable source. There's not a single phone in Canada that supports 5G. There's not a single carrier in Canada that supports 5G. It's a marketing scam. There's no such thing as 5G in this phone. What you're investing in is 5G for the future. So they're charging $200 extra for 5G when it's not even there. I don't know if this speaks wonders to you, but I think the government's doing other things with the 5G towers. So if this doesn't say something to you, I don't know what will. But again, I fix phones every day, and every 5G phone I fix does not even have a 5G chip in it. And right there is where it's supposed to go.
Boom. So weird. Yeah, even just this part of my video alone, I would share. That's mind blowing. You'll have to look more into that. Okay, redacted. Canada making redacted news. There's so many countries in the world, and Canada is just like the people at the top are just embarrassing us.
Or in Canada, cancel the elections. Keep Canadians from going to the polls altogether. Take a page out of Zelensky's handbook in Ukraine. Listen to Karina Gould, the Trudeau's House leader and Liberal leadership candidate, who says Liberals may not allow Canadians to vote in an election this year because of a tariff war with Trump. It's Trump's fault. Listen.
If we are in a full-blown tariff war with the U.S., that might be a reason not to go to the polls. But we are also in a minority government. And so it's actually not just up to the government at the time. There would have to be an agreement with the opposition parties if we weren't to do that. But I think whatever decision we take has to be one that is responsible for Canadians. And one of the things I can say is that, you know, in Ontario, the Premier has decided to call an election at a time where, you know, his energy might be better spent defending Ontario's interests. And so I think Canadians will judge us as to what we decide to do, both as the governing party or as opposition parties, depending on where we are with Donald.
Yeah, where we are with Donald Trump on the tariff. So really, if we have elections in Canada, it's really dependent on what happens with Donald Trump and these tariffs. Let's bring in David Creighton, independent journalist out of Ottawa, Canada, who writes at the Post Millennial. He's got a great YouTube channel as well, Creighton's Right on YouTube, and he's been doing some great interviews lately on all of this. David, great to see you. Welcome to the show. So canceling elections in Canada, is that seems to be the way to hold on to power?
Well, it's funny. This was first mentioned when Trudeau prorogued or suspended Parliament. A lot of folks on the Conservative side said, hey, you know, they could do this again and they could keep staying in power until October 2026, because doesn't the Constitution of Canada say that a government can stay in power for 5 years? But people said, but hey, 15 years ago, the House of Commons voted to have elections every 4 years. So that's the new tempo. But here we have Karina Gould, and there's been Liberal strategists talking the same way. Mark Carney won't answer the question if he's asked about whether or not he's going to hold on to power if he becomes prime minister, or whether he wants to have an immediate election. So this tells me that all of those conservatives who said, hey, this could happen, and were labeled as conspiracy theorists, you know that word, it's once again, the conspiracy theory is being proven to be true. And Karina Gould, by the way, you mentioned this earlier in the show about that Waffen-SS, that former Waffen-SS member who was invited to the House of Commons, given a place of honor in the gallery to listen to Zelensky's speech. Well, it was Karina Gould who invited Yaroslav Hunka, the former Nazi, to come to Ottawa, to come to the House of Commons. And it was Karina Gould who said all of that should be redacted from the record. It should all be censored. Everything that happened that day should be censored from the official government record, which we call Hansard. And that's Karina Gould. So now she wants to cancel elections. She wanted to cancel the memory of her inviting a Nazi to the House of Commons as well.
Oh, we know her well. Now, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing on X, which is this anti-Americanism that you see. And in fact, even a redacted viewer, when we covered the tariffs, they thought, oh, you're anti-Canada now. So are we enemies? How did that happen?
Are we anti-Canada all of a sudden?
You and I, do we have to hate each other?
What's going on here?
Well, it's very mysterious to me because we had a 30-day reprieve to get the border in order, which, of course, Justin Trudeau hasn't really done very well. But in the meantime, he's escalating the tough talk about counter tariffs, retaliatory tariffs. Don't buy American, buy Canadian. And of course, it's all being focused right now on these hockey games where there's booing of the national anthem. So I thought we were trying to work towards a negotiated settlement here. We were trying to get to a solution, because a trade war is not something that Canadians want or Americans want. I'll tell you who wants a trade war, though. Justin Trudeau, the Liberal Party. Mark Carney, his anointed successor, they want a trade war because they want to run in the next election against Donald Trump, not against Pierre Poilievre and the conservatives, because they're going to lose that election. But they think they can win an election against Donald Trump, this U.S. boogeyman. The liberals have been doing this for decades, putting the Americans up as this other party out there, as putting the United States up as this foreign entity that is corrupting and subsuming Canadian values. And we need to be vigilant and we need to be on guard against the United States. This is an old liberal trick, but I can tell you, I don't think it's going to work because people know what Trudeau, Carney, and people like Karina Gould are up to. This is just face-saving measures so Canadians can forget a decade of catastrophic management of the economy, a decade of absolute disaster in this country. That's what Trudeau and the other liberals want Canadians to forget when they focus on Donald Trump and the United States. Most Conservative Party supporters love Donald Trump because of what he's doing right now through these executive orders, how he's defeating the deep state, how he's coming out strong against DEI and against critical race theory, how he is restoring common sense. That's the same platform the Conservative Party in Canada is running on. It's a common sense platform. So I don't think this is going to work. We're not enemies. As Lincoln said before the Civil War, we are not enemies, we are friends. And we have to remember that.
Well, that's something Maxime Bernier continues to say in his platform on X. And this week, he's been really excited about peace talks between Russia and the United States and its proxy, Ukraine. So which leaders do you have in Canada that are saying that are anti-war, that are for peace, that are willing to say Zelensky's a thug, besides Maxime Bernier?
Yeah, is Poilievre on that train?
No, unfortunately we don't. And I criticize Poilievre on this all the time because I, like you both, I'm completely, utterly opposed to this war in Ukraine and the billions of dollars we have sent into this black hole of Kiev. And we continue to do that. We need to end this war. I agree the war was not started 3 years ago. It goes back to at least 2014. There are lots of reasons for this invasion of Russia. Ukraine cannot be a member of NATO. It's an outrageous idea. But no, Pierre Poilievre is not saying this. He's been in lockstep with Justin Trudeau all along. And there's no other political party in Canada except the People's Party of Canada that is supporting this. And my hat's off to Maxime Bernier. I am a good friend of Maxime. And if the People's Party of Canada wasn't polling at about 3 or 4% right now, I think I'd probably be on Maxime's side. But even Maxime has told me he does not expect to be the next prime minister. He knows the Conservative Party of Canada is probably going to win the next election and Pierre Poilievre will be the prime minister. But I will keep pushing Pierre Poilievre from the right, from a conservative perspective, on foreign policy as well as fiscal policy, because I worked at the House of Commons for far too many years. I know I can't trust politicians. I know one thing about politicians, they will always let me down. And if we don't push them in the right direction, and I use that word right in two distinct ways. If we don't do that, they will always drift to the left, and they'll always end up doing not what they were elected to do.
I think that's why we're all so shocked about President Trump right now. I mean, we have a first term where he wasn't able to drain the swamp. He actually added to the swamp in his first term. And here he is totally draining the swamp. And we're all in shock that he said these things he was going to do. And now he's actually doing them. And everyone's in shock. They cannot handle it right now. It's unbelievable. Something else that they can't handle, Canadians can't handle the United States winning in the hockey game, in the big hockey game last weekend, where fights broke out and they booed our national anthem. David, what is going on there? And then tonight, of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about tonight is the night, the championship game in Boston, United States, Canada.
Are we enemies there?
No. What do you think is going to happen tonight? Will the U.S. take home the crown, or will Canada be victorious?
Well, based on the last game, I think the U.S. has a good chance of taking home that crown. I know Donald Trump invited Justin Trudeau to join the governor's conference tonight as the 51st governor. And of course, he's that went over.
Friggin' Subban. I don't know if it was AI or not, but he was wearing a jersey that had the number 51 on it, as in the 51st state. He's friggin' Canadian. He's from Montreal. And he was a captain of the Montreal, like the Habs. Great hockey player. Phenomenal hockey player. And especially like out of the more recent, like probably like my favorite. And we're in that, and then anyways, it was just interesting that he was wearing that, supporting Canada being the 51st state. I really hated the fact that Canadians booed during the American national anthem. That was so disrespectful. I hated it. It was so embarrassing. And so, I mean, not that it matters, but like I apologize on behalf of all Canadians, because anyone that I've talked to, like they totally thought that was just so disgusting and not what we are about. And so these people like shamed Canada like on such an international platform. And we're losing our reputation as being, again, like a peaceful, kind, compassionate, empathetic country. First world values, all that stuff. And that's not who we are. Like, oh my God, it was so infuriating. That's so disrespectful. And yeah.
Well, with Justin Trudeau, but this booing of national anthems is so low class.
Yeah.
I hope Canadians are better than this. It disgusts me. Yeah. Politics has no place in a sports arena.
No.
This is a hockey game. This is ridiculous. And it embarrasses me to see Canadians booing the national anthem, when after 9/11, of course, Canadians played the United States national anthem at many different occasions. I was there in Parliament Hill for a lot of those occasions, and we proudly stood along with Americans. We have proudly stood with Americans during the Second World War, during the First World War, during Korea. We had the Devil's Brigade was made up of Canadian soldiers and U.S. soldiers during the Second World War. It was a first-class Special Forces brigade made up of Canadians and Americans. We are friends. There is no place for this nonsense at hockey games. We need to get back to reality.
Right. And we here on Redacted also spoke out when we're not above it. Americans booed the Russian national anthem in many instances through Olympic Games and things like that.
I just hope
nobody should do that. Full stop.
Can I say I hope that Americans in Boston tonight at the game, we'll see what Boston does. It'd be like it's in New York, there's going to be booing going on. So hopefully when they play the Canadian national anthem tonight in Boston, there's no booing. That would be nice. Elevate the conversation, Bostonians. Elevate it. And cheer the American national anthem, and don't boo the Canadian national anthem tonight. So we will see. David, great to see you up there in Canada. Very interesting times what the Liberal government of Canada is trying to do right now. Thanks as always, and continue the great work. Thanks, David.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, Clayton, and thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, he's great. I would love to get on his podcast as well. Yeah, so if you're watching, I'm just kidding. He's probably never heard of me. And yeah, let's set that up. Still going to be doing something with news updates for real at some point. Not sure when. Kind of on standby. And before I leave, it's going to be a shorter video today because I've already done my 30 hours. I'll share that too, but just 1 second here. Where is this video? Okay, Kate Shimarani. I've shared this before. This information regarding you cannot take an organ from a dead body equals eugenics. Very interesting. Let's see what she has to say.
First of all, you cannot take an organ from a dead body, from a cadaver. Within 3 minutes of no oxygen, you're going to start damaging brain cells, and within 5 minutes, you're going to have cellular death. You have got to be alive to take your organs. That's the end of it. You're not dead. There's no such thing as brain death. If your heart is beating, if you are metabolizing fluids, if you are metabolizing a liquid feed, a soya feed, which they give you, and you're having bowel movements, you are not dead. You're not dead. It's a lie. They're talking about the brain stem, where you've got the hypothalamus, the center that controls your blood pressure, your heartbeat, but the rest, you're not dead. It's a lie. It was a lie that was manufactured so that they could do their eugenics, taking organs from one person to the next. Who makes the best organ donor? Under 30 with a beating heart, a circulation, and ideally on a ventilator. When is the decision made to take your organs? Very early on, probably before you are even aware what they are doing. Because the treatment to preserve your organs is very different to the treatment to save your life. In the UK on the 22nd of May, everybody became an organ donor unless you opt out. People do not know. So the minute that you make that 999 phone call, everything's up there on the screen. They know who you are. This is why they want you on a digital system. Your entire medical history is going to be fed through AI, how much tax you pay, what you're worth to the system. And that's going to come up with whether you're a yay or a nay. Are you getting life-saving treatment or are you on end-of-life care? What age are you? Are you then for organ donor? This is very important that people know this. And so you have to ask, what is this? It's eugenics. It's eugenics.
Yeah, so when they classify you as brain dead, they can keep you alive and take your organs. Interesting. Okay, so I do want to share the US-Canada hockey game from last night. We won. Canada won. I hope they didn't include me.
Now, clearly, there was no one booing that time, but Canada became something of a central talking point in this game, with Chantal Kreviazuk singing the Canadian national anthem before the puck drop, changing the lyrics pointedly from "In All of Us Command" to "That Only Us Command," one of the elements showing how politically charged this all was, Adrian.
So, Thomas, Donald Trump made this not just about hockey, but sovereignty. And I gather we're already seeing some reaction to that.
Yeah, after the win, Justin Trudeau put out on social media this message: "You can't take our country and you can't take our game." That caps off a day of tension between Trudeau and Trump on social media, with Trump inviting Trudeau, calling him a governor, to a meeting in Washington, D.C. with other U.S. governors to watch the game. Trump repeating his threat to annex Canada, and his press secretary repeating from the White House today that the U.S. would beat Canada, a country that would become the 51st state of the Union. Of course, that didn't happen. Canada is still an independent country, and tonight, our champions. Adrian.
Okay, enjoy the night. Thomas Daig in Boston. So it's been a wild, definitely nail-biting night. For the millions of Canadians from coast to coast who hoped and prayed for this victory, we have reporters in Vancouver and in Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, to tell us how that winning goal went over. So why don't we start with Michelle Gassoub, who's at a sports bar in downtown Vancouver. Michelle, such a close game, right down to the end. Tell us about that big, loud, lovely room.
Adrian, when that puck went in the net, this room roared. It just absolutely roared. People were on their feet. They were on their tables. They were on their chairs. They were hugging their friends, lifting their friends up in the air, hugging people I don't think they'd ever met before. I have never felt the blood pressure of a room all come down so quickly and so simultaneously. Adrian, I think this is the game that people wanted, and this is the game that they got. And they made us work for it. I mean, people were extremely stressed going into overtime, but there is some symmetry to that Vancouver 2010 Olympic gold medal game of Canada taking the win in overtime. People were cheering Crosby's name, cheering McDavid's name when they sang the national anthem in this bar, and people sang the line, "True North, strong and free." They held on the free and yelled out the word free. So I think a lot of elated and satisfied Canadian hockey fans tonight. So I think it might take a while for the blood pressure to fully come down. Adrian.
Yeah, it sounds like this country needed that. All right, Michelle, thanks very much. So now let's go to Kayla Hounsell in Nova Scotia. So Kayla, you're in Cole Harbour, where two of tonight's Team Canada stars honed their hockey skills. Has to be a lot of emotion where you are.
Well, there was certainly a lot of emotion when that final goal was scored, Adrian. It's pretty late here, so this bar emptied out pretty quickly. But as I say, so much emotion here in Cole Harbour, as there is across the country, to be sure. But there is something special happening here in the Halifax area tonight, with three hometown players on the ice together. As you say, Cole Harbour is home to Sidney Crosby and Nathan MacKinnon. just down the road in Hammonds Plains, home of Brad Marchand. So when McDavid scored that final goal, this place just lost it. As we heard from Michelle, there were people hugging and screaming, crying, jumping up and down. I can't say it any better than this. Have a listen.
Again, you look at passing the torch, Crosby, McKinnon. McKinnon's now the young gun from Cole Harbour. Crosby on the back end. Obviously, you may see him one more time, but it's going to be McKinnon and McDavid going forward. I'm looking forward to that. So, yeah, obviously the Cole Harbour boys showed up.
Now, Crosby and McKinnon grew up playing at a rink that is just a stone's throw from this bar. So for some people here tonight, this is still surreal to watch them grow up, then to watch them play tonight together on this international stage and win. And so while people here were certainly saying they're so proud of their country tonight, they're especially proud of the boys from Cole Harbour, Adrian.
Yeah, no kidding. Sounds like a great night, Kayla. That's Kayla Hounsell in Cole Harbour.
All right. Very interesting. Okay, well, of course, I'm happy that Canada won. So, yeah, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.